let's talk about our end wedge. This is an optional thing you can do on an acoustic guitar. Typically, if you're doing binding is when you would do an end wedge. You usually don't do an end wedge, I'm saying that word a lot, when you're not doing binding. So it's usually a package deal. Do you have to do an end wedge if you're doing binding? No, you don't. All right, the end wedge, the idea is that it's going to cover this glue seam. Again, optional to do it. If you look at this one, here I have a good glue seam, over here not great. So putting an end wedge in here is going to be really a nice thing to do. Since you're covering this, a lot of people will make them decorative. This is my all mahogany guitar, so I'm going to use mahogany. Sometimes people will use their backstrip material, and it kind of looks like it's wrapping around and coming here. You could also use your binding material, and now the binding all flows together. If we look here at a simple Google image search, we see that there are lots of different options. You can get decorative material. You can make your own out of wood if you want. You'll also notice there's different shapes. On the example I was showing you on my guitar, it's just a rectangle shape, but a lot of these follow the name wedge. And if we look at this one really shows off the idea of not only is there a wedge, but there's a decorative border to the wedge as well. If we talk more specifically about our shape, here would be just a rectangle, like what's going on my all mahogany guitar. If you want to do a more wedge shape, you could do that. What you need to think about is which way is the wedge or the trapezoid going. And then that last thing that we saw in Google Images, the idea of, and it doesn't have to be a rectangle, it could be the trapezoid, but we have one kind of material here, and on the outsides of it is another. All of these options you can do with plastic or binding material or any maybe pickguard material, or you could do it in wood. What we're going to be examining here in the upcoming shots is wood for that end wedge piece. At this point, you've decided on your shape, you've decided on your material. Don't start making it yet though. Let's do some layout. So on my old mahogany one, you can see I'm just going with two parallel lines, a rectangle. Have our guitar in a vise, we have our layout. I'm going to score my line with a knife first. And anytime I do this, number one, I like wearing a glove in case I slip. And number two, I'm using a metal straight edge. Just nice and easy to start. Notice I'm going through the top, the side, and the back. We have our two lines, whatever shape it is, get your two lines scored. And now I'm going to take one of my fret saws and very carefully line it up in that groove and go nice and slow to start. Now the question might become, how deep are we going to go? What we're going to do is end up going all the way through our side into our bracing block that's underneath there. So I don't think I'm that deep yet, and I don't need to be that deep yet. The point is, I don't want to go any deeper than that. Lines are scored, then our fret saw. Now we're going to come in with a chisel, and you just kind of have to just start getting in at some point. But if you look right there, it's starting to peel up my side, so I'm going to stop. That's a good mistake for us to capture, and that means I got to go deeper with this line. It's still happening over there. All right, if I look in here, I can see that I'm down to my block. Now I'm going to take my chisel and turn it upside down just start working my way forward, but also keeping track of how deep I am as well. When I get to the front here, it'd be really tempting to just chisel that out. Odds are it's going to split this. So we're going to leave that alone for now. If we notice here, I have it chiseled out without going through my top and without going through the back. So this is, again, doing an end wedge is optional, but you could also do it like this, where there's no binding going on the guitar. This one is going to get binding, so I am going to come through. But again, you could stop and make your piece just fit right in there. So the next thing we need to do is take out that top and bottom, just that little bit. Our next step is making the end wedge. I'm going to utilize the laser engraver and the computer to do that. In order to draw it, I gotta know how big it needs to be. Now, mine is about 4 inches. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer than 4 inches because I can trim it. It's a little bit over and ½ inch wide, or just about ½ inch, so I'm gonna make it around 0.6 wide, because I could also sand it down and make it smaller. You want it to be a nice snug fit into there. If you're doing a trapezoidal or a wedge shape, you would have to take your time doing your measurements to draw it on the computer. Here's my end wedge drawn, just very simple. If we look at it and we look at our sizes, as you can see, 4 1/4 long and about 0.6 wide, so it is oversized. It is already, the outline is in red, pure red, 255 parts red, 0 parts green, 0 parts blue. And the size of the stroke is at 0.072, meaning this should just be a simple cut on the laser. You could, if you wanted, engrave something in here as well, whether it be a shape, design, names, anything like that. You could do that as well, and now would be the time to do that.